أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 99, Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 20 to 40. Obey Allah and His Messenger. وَلَا تَوَلَّوْا عَنْهُ, and do not turn away from Him. وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْمَعُونَ, while you hear. While you can hear what He is commanding you to do. Over here, believers are being addressed. That, O people who have Iman, if you really have Iman, then you must do this. It's a requirement of your Iman. It proves your Iman. And if you don't do this, this will be a means of deficiency in your Iman. O believers, what should you do? أطيعوا الله. Obey Allah. Obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obey what Allah commands you to do, what Allah orders you to do. What Allah prohibits you from, stay away from it. Obey His instructions. And also, وَرَسُولَهُ, also obey His messenger. Why? Because obedience to the messenger is like obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah An-Nisa, ayah 80, we learn, مَن يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهِ. He who obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. Obedience to the messenger means obedience to Allah. So أطيعوا الله ورسوله ولا تولوا عنه, and do not turn away from Him. From who? From the messenger. Meaning from His obedience. Why is the messenger only mentioned over here? And why hasn't it been said ولا تولوا from Allah and from the messenger? Because Allah's command is also delivered by who? By the messenger. And disobedience to the messenger is disobedience to Allah. وَلَا تَوَلَّوْا عَنْهُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْمَعُونَ, while you can hear. Meaning while you hear, while you know what the Prophet ﷺ has commanded, what he has taught. وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْمَعُونَ. So what do we learn from this ayah? That as believers, we must implement whatever we are commanded. Whatever. And we must abstain from whatever that we are forbidden. And this is the attitude of a true believer. That whenever he listens to a command, وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْمَعُونَ, whenever he hears a command, whenever he listens to a command, he makes a promise to implement it. He doesn't say, I don't think I can do it. He doesn't say, this is impossible. This is too difficult. No. He makes the intention of doing it. سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. And when a person makes his promise, when a person makes the intention, then Allah also enables him to obey. Allah also enabled him to perform that action. And if a person hears, and yet he says, no, I'm not going to do it, then how will he get tawfiq? So, from this ayah, we also learn about the importance of listening. وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْمَعُونَ, while you listen. That when, if you have listened carefully, when you listen attentively, then only can you remember. And then only can you change your actions. We learn in Surah Qaf, ayah 37, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَى لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ. That indeed in that is a reminder. For who? For the one who has a heart. Or the one who listens while he is present. Because the one who listens while he is present, only he will be able to obey. Because sometimes people are listening, but they're mentally absent, they're mentally elsewhere. Then maybe they have heard a lot, but will they be able to implement? No. Will they be able to obey? No. Many times what happens? Instructions are given. For example, with regards to going somewhere. You tell your children, we're going here, this is when we have to leave, this is what we have to take, and you tell them all the details. If they're not paying attention, if they're not listening attentively, later on what's going to happen? Are they going to follow your instructions? No. Are they going to have questions? Yes, they are going to have questions. Why? Because they did not pay attention. So وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْمَعُونَ, while you are listening, make sure you're listening with attention so that you can obey. وَلَا تَكُونُوا, and do not be كَالَّذِينَ قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا وَهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ. Do not be like those people who say that we have heard, but in reality, they don't listen. On the apparent, it seems as though they are listening. They're nodding their heads. Literally. On the apparent, they're nodding their heads. Perhaps they're even writing. Perhaps they're even repeating what you're saying. They appear to be listening, but in reality they don't listen. Why? Because when a person has heard something and he has accepted it, then it shows in his actions. His actions change. But if the actions don't change, what does it show? That he didn't listen. He didn't pay any attention. So what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying over here? That don't be like those people who say that we have heard, but in reality, they don't hear. Because their actions don't change. For example, if a person comes to the door of your house, but he does not enter the house, can he say that he went to your house? Can he say that? No. Why? Because coming to your house means going inside your house. You cannot say that he came into the house. So similarly, if the command only hits the ears, but it bounces back, it doesn't go into the heart, and as a result it doesn't change the actions, then in reality a person has not heard. When a person has really heard, it will show in his actions. And that is the sign that it has gone in. So don't be like those people who say a lot that yes, I know. We have heard, we have listened. Because sometimes you tell people, come and study the Quran. What do they say? We have studied. I've heard. I have read. But is that enough? It's not enough. Listen until it changes your action. Because if your action has not changed, then in reality you have not heard. Inna sharra ad-dawabi. Indeed, the worst of living creatures. عند Allah, in the sight of Allah, are who? As-sum, al-bukm, alladhina la ya'qilun. They are those who are deaf and dumb, those people who do not use reason. Who? Who are these? The sharra ad-dawab, the worst of living creatures. The word ad-dawab is the plural of dabba. And dabba is a living, moving creature. It's basically a living creature that can move by its own will. That moves. Whether it moves in the form of crawling, or flying, or swimming, or walking, in different forms. But what is a dabba? A living creature. Therefore, the word dabba applies to human beings, it applies to insects, it applies to birds, the fish in the sea, all different types of creatures. So indeed, the worst of creatures, and remember, ad-dawab is a general word that is used for creatures. Worst of all human beings and cats and dogs and snakes and goats and sheep, the worst amongst them, in the sight of Allah is who? As-sum, the one who is deaf. Physically? No. The one who is deaf to listening to the truth, to accepting the truth. The one who is deaf to the commands of Allah. The one who is deaf to the instructions of the Prophet ﷺ. The one who does not pay attention to Allah's words, to Allah's guidance. That deaf person is the worst in the sight of Allah. Al-bukm, the one who is also dumb. Physically? No. The one who is dumb from speaking the truth. The one who is incapable of speaking out the truth, of accepting it and saying it out. Because you see, when you have heard something and you've accepted it, what's going to happen? It's going to change your actions. And it's also going to come to your tongue. Isn't it? You're going to speak accordingly. That's what you're going to say. That is what you're going to verbalize. But if a person hears but he doesn't hear, if a person hears but he doesn't change his words, he doesn't change his language, he doesn't say that which is the truth, but instead he remains silent, he doesn't spread the truth, then he's behaving like a person who is mute, a person who is unable to speak. الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ, those who do not use reason. Allah has given them aql, but they don't use that intellect. Especially they don't use that intellect to understand the haqq, to understand the deen of Allah. When it comes to worldly affairs, their intellect, their mind, it works very fast. It works very quickly. They understand big concepts, big problems, big equations, big formulas. They can understand them, they can apply them. Most complicated matters. When it comes to understanding the words of Allah, the words of the Messenger, They don't bother to use their mind over there. They don't bother to exercise their mind a little bit over there even. الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. They don't use their intellect that Allah has given them to understand the words of Allah, to comprehend the command of His Messenger. Such people are worst in the sight of Allah. They are worse compared to even other creatures. Because notice, ad-dawab has been used, the worst of all creatures. They're worse compared to ants and animals and fish and birds. Many times we look at animals and what do we think? Poor animals, they don't have any intellect. They don't understand at all. You can talk to them, you can lecture them. They have ears, they have hearts, they have eyes. But they don't have reason. We feel pity for them. They don't understand what's good for them. They don't understand what's bad for them. And sometimes we feel pity that they're behaving foolishly. But what about a human being who becomes worse than all of the creatures on the surface of the earth? الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. We learned earlier in Surah Al-Baqarah, in ayah 171, that وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي يَنْعِقُ بِمَا لَا يَسْمَعُ إِلَّا دُعَاءً وَنِدَاءً صُمٌّ بُكْمٌ عُمْيٌ فَهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. The example of those who disbelieve is like that of the one who shouts at animals, who don't hear anything but calls and cries. If you shout out to a sheep or a goat, what is it going to hear? Is it going to comprehend the words that you're saying? No. It's only going to hear the sound of a call, the sound of a cry. So such people, they are deaf, dumb, and blind. They don't comprehend anything that is said to them. So they do not understand. Likewise, there are some people who listen to the Quran, but they only hear sounds. They have no idea as to what those sounds mean. They have no idea. لا يعقلون. They don't understand what those sounds mean. Just imagine, you go to a country, or you go attend a lecture, and that lecture is being given in a language other than which you speak. You go attend a lecture and it's being delivered in Mandarin. It's being delivered in Chinese. Okay, some of you may be familiar with French, perhaps with Spanish. But Chinese, hardly anyone. If you go and attend such a gathering, and the lecture is being given, how do you feel? People are laughing at a joke, or they're becoming very sad about something. How do you feel? Foolish. Foolish that you don't understand what's going on. Isn't it? How about when the Quran is being recited, when the words of the Prophet ﷺ are being read, and we have no idea as to what they mean. We have no idea where the word begins, where the word ends. Where the sentence begins, where the sentence ends. Shouldn't we be feeling foolish over there? الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. They don't comprehend the words of Allah. We learned earlier about the characteristics of the believers, that إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم وَإِذَا تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُهُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا. If we don't understand the ayat, then how can our iman improve? How can our iman improve? If our child is not doing good in math, if our child is not doing good in English, in sciences, we become so concerned. We become so concerned. They're going to fail. English is the main thing. It's the basic. If you cannot get your English right, if you cannot get your math right, if you cannot get your foundations right, then how will you go to university? We become so concerned. How about when they hear the Quran and when they don't understand what it means? Do we feel pity for them? Do we get concerned at that time? Do we get worried about them? We should be equally worried at that time. Because a person who hears the words of Allah and he doesn't understand what Allah is saying, then look at what Allah is saying. That إِنَّ شَرَّ الدَّوَابِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الصُّمْ الْبُكْمُ الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. They have no idea as to what Allah is saying. They hear the words, but they're deaf to understanding the words. And because they don't understand, they're bukum. They don't even repeat that which they have heard. They don't act according to it. الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. And over here, we also need to check ourselves. That when we hear the Quran, when we hear the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what is our behavior? Does our action change? If it doesn't, then we're behaving like those people who haven't understood. Has our speech improved? If it hasn't, then we're behaving like those people who are deaf to listening to the Quran. الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. And when a person is like this, then he is شَرَّ الدَّوَابِ. He is the worst of creatures in the sight of Allah. If you look at it, the human being is supposed to be the best of all creation. Why? What is it that distinguishes the human being from the rest of the creation? It's his intellect, it's his aql. But if that aql is not being used correctly, then a human being stoops to the level of animals. Rather even lower. بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلْ. Rather they are more astray. وَلَوْ عَلِمَ اللَّهُ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا. And if Allah knew, if Allah had known any good in them. What does it mean by this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. So if He's saying that had Allah known any good in them, what does it mean? That there is no good in them. There is no good in them. وَلَوْ عَلِمَ اللَّهُ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا. If there was any good in them, and what does this khayr refer to? Any desire for learning, any desire to know, any desire to understand, any willingness to change, any willingness to improve, then what would happen? لَأَسْمَعُهُمْ. Surely He would make them hear, and He would make them understand. He would give them the opportunity to listen, to comprehend, to accept, to understand. وَلَوْ أَسْمَعُهُمْ. And even if He made them hear, لَتَوَلَّوْا. Surely they would turn away. وَهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. While they are turning away, while they are averse. Meaning, these people, they have no good in them. Which is why, even if they listen, they don't understand. If there was even a little bit of good in these people, even a little bit of khair, even a little bit of sincerity, then Allah would give them the ability to understand what they're listening to. But because they have no khair, this is why Allah does not even give them the ability to understand. And there are others whom if Allah forces them to understand, forces them to listen and comprehend, despite there being no khair in them, what would happen to those people? They would listen, but still they would turn away. They would comprehend, but still they would not change themselves. And over here we need to check ourselves. That we have been given the ability to listen to the Quran every day. To understand the Quran every day. To understand more and more ayat of the Quran every single day. But what is our behavior? Are we accepting the commands of Allah, or are we turning away, being averse, having no interest? If it's the other situation where we are turning away, having no interest, then we need to worry about ourselves. Because we are in danger. وَلَوْ أَسْمَعَهُمْ لَتَوَلَّوْا وَهُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. We learn in Surah Al-Mulk, ayah number 10, that when the people of hell will enter hellfire, they will say, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. That they will say, if only we had heard, meaning we had paid attention to listening even once. If only we had bothered to understand, if only we had used our mind, we would not be here today. The people of hellfire will regret not listening, not paying attention, not bothering to understand. It's going to be a source of great regret for them on the Day of Judgment. So what do we learn from these ayat? That if a person does not change his amal, if a person does not improve his actions, if a person does not act according to the commands of Allah and His Messenger, then what does it mean? That he hasn't heard. He's not using his ears properly. He's not using his abilities properly. We also learn from this ayah that those people who do not listen, who do not even bother to listen, Allah does not care for them. Allah does not care for such people. He will not compel them to accept the truth. Because over here we see that وَلَوْ عَلِمَ اللَّهُ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا لَأَسْمَعَهُمْ. If they had any good in them, Allah would have forced them to listen. But because they have no good in them, Allah doesn't even care about them. Allah doesn't even force them. Allah does not even give them an opportunity. And sometimes we see that there are people who have at least some khair in them, and they're literally forced into listening to the Quran. Forced into, against their own will sometimes. Because there is some khair. And we judge people on the apparent. That, oh, this person, He doesn't have any interest. Why is he here? They should be sent away. But what do we learn? That if a person has even a little bit of khair, Allah will give him opportunity. Allah will give him tawfiq. وَلَوْ عَلِمَ اللَّهُ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا. Khayran is nakira. Even a little bit of khair, لَأَسْمَعُهُمْ, He would give them opportunity. But on the other hand, if a person, he listens, Allah gives him the tawfiq, but he doesn't pay attention, he doesn't even bother to understand, then Allah does not care for such a person. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have believed, istajibu lillahi walirrasul, respond to Allah and to the Messenger. When you have heard the command of Allah, when you have heard the command of the Messenger, then don't act deaf. Respond. Show that you have some life in you. Show that your ears are working. Respond. Istajibu. Respond. Lillahi walirrasuli idha da'akum. To Allah and the Messenger when they call you. And idha da'akum, when He calls you, who does He refer to? The Prophet ﷺ over here in particular. Because responding to the call of the Messenger is like responding to the call of Allah. إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ, when He called you, لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ, to that which gives you life. What does it mean by this? When the Messenger calls you to that which gives life to you. When He calls you to that, respond. Which call is this? What does مَا يُحْيِيكُمْ refer to? First of all, it refers to anything and everything that the Prophet ﷺ invites to. Anything and everything that the Prophet ﷺ has commanded. Because if a person obeys the commands of the Prophet ﷺ, then he will have hayat. What kind of hayat? What kind of life? Isn't he already living? What kind of life is this? A good life in the dunya and the akhirah. For example, hayat over here can refer to everlasting good life in Jannah. Because in Jahannam, in hellfire, there is no life. What do we learn? لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا. The one in hellfire, he will neither die nor will he live. In hellfire there is no life. Where is life? In Jannah. So when a person responds to the call of the Messenger, responds to the call of Allah, then what is the result? Jannah. In which there is eternal, good, blissful life. Secondly, this hayat also refers to intangible life. That a person's heart enlightens. A person's mind enlightens, becomes alive. A righteous life in this dunya. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً, a good life. So when the Messenger calls you, no matter what he is calling you to, any command, any instruction, respond. Because it's a source of good life for you in this dunya and the hereafter. Many times we hear about the command of the Prophet ﷺ and we say it's only a sunnah. It's not fard. Just tell me what's fard. Forget about the sunnah. What do we learn? What the Prophet has commanded is a source of life. We learn from a hadith which is recorded in Al-Bukhari that Abu Sa'id ibn al-Mu'alla, he said that I was praying when the Prophet ﷺ passed by me. He was praying. And the Prophet ﷺ called me, but I did not answer him. Why? Because he was praying. Until I finished the prayer. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said to him, مَا مَنَعْكَ أَن تَأْتِيَنِي أَلَمْ يَقُلِ اللَّهُ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اسْتَجِيبُوا لِلَّهِ وَلِلرَّسُولِ إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ. That what prevented you from coming to me when I called you? Hasn't Allah said this? That respond to the call of the Messenger when He calls you to that which gives you life? So then the Prophet ﷺ said to him that I will teach you the greatest surah in the Quran before I leave. So when the Prophet ﷺ was leaving, he reminded him what he had said to him. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Surely it is a 7 oft-repeated verses. So the Prophet ﷺ taught him something which would be a source of a good life for him in the dunya and the akhirah. He gave him knowledge. And what is knowledge for heart? Life. Because when a person does not have knowledge, when a person does not have iman, his heart is as good as dead. What makes him different? Nothing. Now you may wonder over here, but he was praying. This is why he didn't respond. But what do we learn? That if a person is praying nafil salah, then if the Prophet is calling him, when the Prophet ﷺ was alive, then he's supposed to respond to the call of the Messenger. Similarly, if a child is praying nafil salah and the parent calls, then what is he supposed to do? Respond to the call of the parent, because it's nafil. It's not sunnah, it's not fard. Similarly, إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ مَا يُحْيِيكُمْ also refers to a command of the deen. There may be some commandments which are very difficult for some people to implement. Isn't it so? For them, following those commands is like dying. If I follow this, that's it, I'm done, I'm finished. For some people, following some commands is like dying. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say over here? When the messenger calls you, when Allah calls you to something, when they give you a command, in reality there is life for you. Momentarily, it will be difficult. You will definitely feel suffocated. You will feel as though, your life has become constricted. Your life has become difficult. But eventually, you will have a life in this dunya and the akhirah. For example, it's possible that a person is in a situation where his income is haram. His income is completely unlawful. Now Allah tells him, leave it. So if he leaves it, it's like as if he's going to die. For him, leaving that job is like accepting death. For some people, it's really difficult. For some people, putting on the hijab or praying the salah or reciting the Quran is literally like death. It's that difficult for them. It's that challenging for them. But what does Allah say? It's going to give you life. And in the context of this surah, what's the context? The battle of Badr. So when Allah and His Messenger call you, lima yuhyikum, what does ma refer to? What's the third meaning? Call to jihad. Call to jihad. That when they call you for battle in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may feel as though you are looking at death. You are going in the face of death. But in reality, it's going to be a source of life for you. If you look at it, when the Muslims, they heard of the caravan, they wanted to loot it. But the command was to fight the enemy. Isn't it so? Now, if the Muslims, they managed to attack the caravan, what would happen? The army of 1,000 mushrik men, would they spare them? No. They would come after them and the life of all Muslims would be in danger. Isn't it so? So when they responded to the call of jihad, what did that do? It saved their life. And it saved the life of the rest of the Muslims as well. Yes, there were some casualties. Yes, there were some martyrs. Even them, what did we learn about shuhada? That don't say they are dead. Don't say they are amwat, bal ahya, rather they are alive. When Allah and His Messenger call you, when they give you a command, whether it is a command to pray, or it is a command to earn halal, or it is a command to apply the hudud, or it is any kind of command, respond. Because in it, there is life. What did we learn about qisas? وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ. In implementing qisas, there is hayat for you. So the command that Allah gives, the command that the Prophet ﷺ gives, there is hayat for us in it. What kind of hayat is it? A good life in dunya, life of the heart, as well as life in the hereafter. A good life in the hereafter. وَاعْلَمُوا, and you should know that أَنَّ اللَّهَ, that indeed Allah, يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ, that Allah intervenes between man, between a person and his heart. Allah is between the person and his heart. يَحُولُ. What does يَحُولُ mean? يَحُولُ is from the root letters ha, waw, lam. And hala يَحُولُ is to come in between. It is to interfere. From the same root is the word hawl. What does hawl mean? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Strength, power, obstruction. So when something comes in between, it is a means of preventing. It becomes an obstruction. Hila is from the same root, hiyal, plan. Because when you make a plan, especially through trickery, you're saving yourself from harm. You're preventing the harm from yourself. So وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Know that Allah intervenes between the man and his heart. What does it mean by this? You see, sometimes we make the intention to do something. Isn't it? We make the intention. Where is the intention? In the heart. Where is the action? On the limbs. Now between the two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala interferes. Allah can come in the middle. You make the intention, you want to do the action, but it's possible that Allah will not give you the ability. Isn't it? You make the intention, you delay too much. And eventually the opportunity is taken away from you. Isn't it? So Allah comes between the person and his heart. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, he explained this as that Allah has full control over people's hearts. Between the intention and the action is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person may not be able to do anything without the will of Allah. You make a plan and Allah has a plan. Isn't it? You make a plan and Allah has a plan. You think you're going to execute the plan, but Allah comes in the middle. He doesn't let you do what you want to do. Literally it is as if your hands are tied up. You don't find the time to do what you want to do. You're just not getting the tawfiq. You understand? Like for example, you get 1 week break and you make a plan. Okay, by the end of this week, inshallah, I will do this. You make a long list. You make the intention. You set your goals. But it's as though your hands are tied up. You become ill. Or something happens all of a sudden and you have to spend your whole week looking after someone. Or going to a particular place, doing some work. And all that list you made, you're not able to accomplish it. So you understand? You make the intention and you're not able to accomplish. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can interfere in the middle. He can come in the middle. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. You cannot will and execute that will unless and until Allah allows you to do that. Now why is this being said over here? وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. What is mentioned right before it? That istajibu, respond. Because you never know when the ability, the opportunity will be taken away from you. We hear the commands. We don't make the intention. Or we make the intention, but we make long plans. 5 years. After 5 years, inshallah, then I will do this. 3 years. When I get married, then inshallah I will start wearing the hijab. When I get married, then inshallah I will start memorizing the Quran. You know, my husband will also have strong iman. I will also have strong iman. We will both memorize the Quran. People make these plans. Literally. They won't study the deen. When I get married, then inshallah I will start praying tahajjud with my husband. We'll wake up at night and pray tahajjud. Istajibu before it's too late. How do you know you will get to see tomorrow? How do you know what might happen tomorrow? You don't know. Istajibu, respond before it's too late. And so many times it happens with us. We make a plan, we're not able to execute it. Why? Because we procrastinate. We delay too much. What is important to you, do it right away. Don't delay too much. Because you don't know when death is coming. You don't know when illness is coming. You don't know when more things are coming in your life, making you more and more busy daily. We think that if we delay, we will have more time later on. But the reality is, the more we delay, the less time we have. Girls wait that when they will get married, then they will start doing certain things. When they get married, what happens? Then they have to cook and clean every day, which they didn't have to before. They have less time in their hands. Then they have children. They become more busy. Then they have older parents to look after. They become more busy. Remember, as life goes on, you become more and more busy. Respond before it's too late. Before it's too late. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. You don't know when death is coming. You don't know when the decree of Allah is coming. So execute the plan. Follow the intention with action before it's too late. وَأَنَّهُ إِلَيْهِ تُحْشَرُونَ. And indeed to Him you will be returned. You're going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're going back to Him. So don't delay. Because when you go back, He's going to question you as to what you did in your life. What are you going to answer Him? I was too busy eating and drinking and changing and doing laundry and cleaning. That's it. What about higher goals in your life? What are you going to answer Him? So when you make a plan, execute quickly. When you hear about the command of Allah, make the intention right away to follow it through. Don't make long plans, because this is one of the plots of shaitan. He gives false hopes to us. False hopes. That life is long. You have too much time. Right now you're busy. Do it next year. Doesn't it happen that if you have the lesson to memorize today, and if you don't do it, you say, okay, inshallah, when the test comes, then I will memorize this lesson. But when you have to revise for the test, it's a half juz. Can you really do that lesson 7 times? You don't have the time. Even if you try to do it, you will not be able to. Then what's going to happen? You say, at the end of the course. At the end of the course, you have other things to do. That lesson is gone. That opportunity is gone. The way you memorized other parts of the Quran, you have not been able to memorize that part of the Quran. That opportunity is gone. Before it's too late, respond. Never leave what is important to you for tomorrow. When you hear the command of Allah, don't leave it for tomorrow. Don't say next year. You might become sick. You might die before that. Problems might come in your life. How do you know you have life tomorrow? How do you know you have free time tomorrow? وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. And remember that the heart is between the 2 fingers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can change it whenever He wants. Today you are motivated to do something. Tomorrow you might not have the motivation. Today you're listening to the Quran every day. Your iman is very high. If you don't start memorizing the adhkar and reciting the adhkar today, you think tomorrow you will want to? No. Many times what happens, we come across different adhkar. For example, adhkar to recite in the salah or after the salah. And we say, inshallah, I will memorize. And we have plans. I will memorize. I will do this, I will do this, I will do this. Time goes by and we don't get to memorize. And then we even don't have the motivation left. We don't have the motivation left. Because we have waited too long. The Prophet ﷺ, he used to make the dua, Ya muqallibul qulubi, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O you who changes the hearts, make my heart firm on your religion. And the Sahaba, they said to the Prophet ﷺ, O Allah's Messenger, we have believed in you and in what you brought us. Are you afraid for us? Meaning, why are you making this dua? That Ya muqallibul qulubi, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, I do worry for you. Because إِنَّ الْقُلُوبَ بَيْنَ إِصْبَعَيْنِ مِنْ أَصَابِعِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى يُقَلِّبُهَا. Yes, I do worry for you, because the hearts are between 2 of Allah's fingers and He changes them as He wills. Today, if a person is in a certain state of iman, tomorrow it might be different. Today he's highly motivated, tomorrow he's not motivated. Today you have a lot of sabr, tomorrow you don't have that sabr. So do it before it's too late. Don't delay for too long. Istajibu